Data from 2009 to 2019 reveals a gap. While Kashmir terrorism claimed 384 civilians and 675 security personnel, Naxalite violence caused 2,191 civilian deaths and 1,342 security fatalities. These casualties occur centrally, far from borders, driven by marginalized citizens. This scale of internal violence points to a specific breakdown of authority, a geographic vacuum where the state's influence vanished, allowing a new kind of power to root. The conflict's origin traces back to March 1967, in the small West Bengal village of Naxalbari. A tribal farmer named Bimal Kisan had won a Supreme Court order to reclaim his land, but the landlord's men ignored the court, beat Kisan severely, and chased him off his property. When he sought help, the local police took no action. Frustrated by the system, local farmers allied with radical political organizers, Charu Majumdar and Kanu Samyal. They channeled the tribal anger into an armed resistance, directing farmers to seize land by force. These leaders drew their strategic blueprint from China. They adopted the ideology of Mao Zedong, focusing on an armed agrarian revolution led by the rural poor. In May 1967, the situation spiraled violently out of control. Tribals armed with bows, arrows, and spears began attacking landlords. When police entered the village to make arrests, the villagers resisted. The police opened fire, killing 11 people, including 9 women and 2 children. This birthed the Naxalite movement. A farmer had the highest court on his side, yet the state wouldn't enforce its own protections. By leaving its citizens exposed, the government created the conditions for a militant ideology to promise the justice the law would not provide. To survive government crackdowns, the insurgents retreated into India's vast unmapped forests. This dense terrain covers roughly 12% of the country's landmass, offering a sanctuary that the military struggled to penetrate. The Naxalites embedded themselves within the isolated tribal populations living in these jungles. They learned local languages like Gandhi and gained trust by physically protecting the tribals from corrupt forest officers who frequently exploited the community. The insurgents addressed local economic grievances. Tribal workers collected tendu leaves for bidi cigarettes, selling them to contractors for just 4 rupees a bundle. The Naxalites organized the workers and threatened contractors, eventually forcing the price up to 25 rupees. The movement expanded by offering the physical and economic security that the government had largely abandoned. In 1991, economic liberalization brought private mining companies into tribal forests to extract mineral resources. Many tribals faced displacement without proper compensation, creating a surge of local anger that the Naxalites used for mass recruitment. By 2004, factions merged into the CPI Maoist, consolidating central India into the Red Corridor. Inside, their Janata Sarkar shadow government ran courts and taxed mining. Through sabotage, they halted billion-dollar projects, forcing corporations like Tata and POSCO to flee. By the early 2000s, the Naxalites functioned as a fully operational parallel state, a hostile power center that actively drained the national economy and military. The movement reached its height around 2010, but the organization was rotting from within. Internal conflicts and personal greed among the leadership began to fracture the group's unity. The leadership's hypocrisy became difficult to ignore. While tribal foot soldiers faced forced sterilizations and were sent to the front lines, top leaders used extorted money to buy luxury flats in Delhi and pay millions for their relatives' private medical educations. This shift toward mafia-style extortion alienated the Naxalites' own supporters. The movement lost its foundational base when the tribals realized the leadership was exploiting them too. The state shifted its tactics, using thermal imaging and drones to track insurgent movement through the thick jungle canopy. But the government also realized that military force was only half the solution. The Samadan doctrine aggressively built roads, cell towers, and schools to reconnect isolated tribal regions. The result is a documented retreat of the insurgency. The Red Corridor, which once influenced over 180 districts, has now receded to just a few dozen isolated pockets. Brute force alone was never enough to stop the conflict. The Red Corridor is receding because the state is finally addressing the socio-economic isolation driving the